right. Thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Laura Santner, and I will be going over the frequently asked questions today. So relax, grab a fidget, something to drink. Let me see. What fidget do I have today? I have my little stone right here. Gratitude. I can kind of squeeze and feel as a fidget today. Oh, and I have a spinner ring. I have a spinner ring on too. Okay, so I'm going to be going over the pre-submitted questions first and the most frequently asked questions, and then we'll just dive right into your live questions. Okay, and I will get to as many as I can. All right, so let's see. So some of the pre-submitted questions and the most frequently asked questions. First one is what causes hair pulling? So yeah, what causes it? It's quite complex and there's no real answer, unfortunately, but research does show that there is a genetic predisposition, um, but that's not the only factor. So even though there's that inherited genetic predisposition, other factors such as your hormones, your temperament, the age of onset, any additional co-occurring disorders, your environment and stress factors. So all of these things can affect and trigger the hair pulling disorder. Okay, so just because you have one thing doesn't mean that you're going to have another. It's just kind of that magic combination, unfortunately. Okay. Um, what kind of therapists do I see and how do I find them? So the best therapist is one that's trained. You want someone that is trained in BFRBs, body focused repetitive behaviors. Hair pulling is a BFRB. So you want someone that's specifically trained. You can find specifically trained therapists on trickstop.com, on bfrb.org. They have lists of therapists in your area. You can also consider joining the Trick Stop program because all of the therapists that you will be working with in the program are all highly knowledgeable and trained. Okay, so when you're looking for a therapist, you want to look for keywords. So on their modalities that they use. So keywords such as the comprehensive behavioral model or COMB, you might see that. You want to look for habit reversal training or HRT. You're also going to look for acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, the cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. So there really is no one way of treating hair pulling disorder. It's kind of this combination of modalities. So if you're just focusing on one modality, you are not going to have success. So you want to find that combination that works best for you. Okay. Let's see. What is NAC and what is the recommended dosage? So NAC stands for N-acetylcysteine. So it's the only FDA approved uh, medication for BFRBs right now. And and actually it's not, I don't even know if I would put it in the category of medication because it's an amino acid supplement over the counter. So right now, that's the recommended medication or supplement for hair pulling. It's the dosage can vary. So the studies, what they used in the studies was between 1,200 milligrams and 2,400 milligrams. So the recommended starting dose would be 1,200 milligrams, but broken up throughout the day. So basically taking it twice a day. So 600 milligrams, let's say in the morning, and 600 milligrams in the evening. So you want to be taking it around times when you tend to have more urges because it is short lasting. So, they basically say it can stay in your system between 8 and 10 hours. But some people can kind of feel it. It only works for like 3 to 5 hours. So you want to kind of take 600 milligrams at a time. Okay. But of course, don't just decide you want to take it and go to the pharmacy and get it. Talk to your doctor first, because if you're on other medications too, you just want to make sure everything is all okay. So always consult with your doctor, a psychiatrist, your primary medical doctor, even a pharmacist. Just talk to someone before taking it. Okay, hope that was helpful. What role does nutrition play in urges? So, Dr. Grant is one of the leading researchers in this field. So he did a study basically with sugar, looking at sugar specifically and looking at saturated fats. So he found um, that sugar does play a role um, in your urges, and saturated fats do not play a role. But the combination of high fats and high sugar can play a role, specifically with higher motor impulsivity. So, of course, more research is needed. So, but there are indications that specifically, if you have a lot of sugar, that could impact your urges, and you might have more urges. Okay. What is the connection between caffeine and urges? Yeah, so Dr. Grant, again, the leading researcher in this field, interestingly enough, found that moderate amounts of caffeine can actually help to lower urges and help to manage urges, which seems like something you wouldn't really expect. So, moderation can actually have protective factors. So it can help, for example, to increase your alertness, and it can help without bringing on those negative effects that higher doses of caffeine would have. So basically, moderate amount can be helpful. And what moderate means is that what they term as moderate is 1 to 3 cups. Okay. Again, more research is needed, um, but definitely interesting. Hmm. Hope that was helpful. Again, if I'm answering any questions and you have follow-up questions, just write in the Q&A. I do see some questions coming in the Q&A, so we'll get to those after I go over the pre-submitted and the frequently asked questions first. Let's see, next question. I sometimes eat my hair after I pull. Is this common? So if you're eating your hair, this is called trichophagia, and it's estimated that 0.6% of the population engage in eating the hair. If you kind of expand the definition to include like just kind of like sucking or chewing but on the hair but without swallowing, that's a little bit higher percentage. That's I have down here 3.2% of the population engage in that. If you're eating your hair, let your doctor know if you're swallowing and ingesting, because that can actually lead to complications such as intestinal blockages. Um, so that's called trichobezoar, which is a hairball in your intestines, which could require surgery. So let your doctor know, let your therapist know if you're ingesting your hair. Okay. Um, if you are ingesting, or if you're kind of playing with it around your mouth, some strategies you can consider. Some people really like kind of chewing on dry spaghetti. Um, I tend to recommend bean sprouts. I find bean sprouts are a little bit closer because you got that like bulb at the end. So I recommend bean sprouts. You can also wear these like chewable like silicone necklaces or jewelry. So those can kind of feel nice on the mouth and in the mouth. So there are strategies to experiment if you are a hair eater or playing with the hair around your mouth. What is the prevalence between men and women? It is, or is it perceived as a woman issue? So I feel like, yes, it is perceived as a woman issue, and it is perceived that more women have it than men. But actually, I think the reality is that it's quite equal. Both men and women can have a BFRB, can pull their hair. What happens is it's quite underreported, and women tend to report it more. So, so the percentages out there are, I believe, are pretty skewed, just for that reason, right? It's under recognized and underreported. But overall, it could be a man can have it, woman can have it, anyone can have it. Okay. And how common is hair pulling? So it's more common again than you might realize. So again, the percentages are a little bit all over the place. Like they go from like 1% to 4%. But I basically explain it like it's about 1 in 20 people have hair pulling or BFRB. And I think there is a lot more because there's so much shame associated with this, as I'm sure you've experienced. So because there's all of that shame and embarrassment, it goes underreported. Okay, and people don't want to talk about it, and people don't want treatment. And some people don't even recognize that it's a thing, it's a disorder, it has a name. So the percentage right now is like between 1 and 4%, but most likely quite higher. Okay. Any tips on how to tell people you have trick? Yeah. So first off, it's up to you whether or not you want to tell anyone at all. It's up to you. And keep in mind, what is your comfort level? So if you want to tell someone that you trust, that you care about, that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, and when you're ready. And you can tell them however you want, whenever you want. Make sure you're in an environment that, again, you feel comfortable in. So if you decide to tell someone, you can tell them what it is. Tell them what you do, tell them it has a name. You can say, 1 in 20 people have this. You can give them resources like trickstop.com, for example. So you can kind of direct them to websites. You can direct them towards any specific articles that interest you. Be prepared to answer questions and have a conversation about it. Usually, if you're telling someone something about yourself, they're going to respond with something about themselves. So it can be a really nice sharing experience and a nice way to connect with people. Um, if someone does not respond well, and it could happen, usually it doesn't, but it can happen. And if that happens, it's okay. It just means that, they're not the right person for you to have in your life, right? You want someone who's going to be understanding and be supportive. Um, Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. You can also talk to them about what it feels like. So because it's such a hard thing to understand, I like to give examples. So what does an urge feel like? It feels like you're trying not to blink, right? Sometimes it feels like that. Like how long can you go, whoopsie, without blinking? And when you try really hard not to blink, that's kind of what that urge feels like. Or it feels like you're walking around with a pebble in your shoe. How long can you walk with that pebble in your shoe? Right? Can you take a couple of steps? Can you walk a mile? Can you walk 10 miles with a pebble in your shoe? So that discomfort is kind of what an urge feels like. So when you describe that to someone, it helps for them to understand it a little bit better. Will my hair grow back? Yes. Short answer is yes. It will grow back. It does take time though, which can be really frustrating. And hair grows at different rates, also depending on where on your body. So it can feel a little discouraging if one area is growing back faster than the other. But yeah, it does grow back. And keep in mind, when it grows back, it also might look and feel different. So it might be growing back a little bit of a different color, a different texture. It might be thinner. It could be thicker. So it kind of takes a little time for that hair follicle to heal and regather itself, basically. Um, so so have patience with yourself as it's growing back, and it will kind of get back into its how you're used to it eventually. But it might take some time. Um, so yes, it will grow back. Um, if it's something that's really frustrating you and you're feeling really impatient or you're really concerned about, you can do other things to help. So, um, overall, just having a healthy lifestyle, like eating healthy and getting exercise, um, that can help boost your immune system and help kind of stimulate growth. You could use products. There are some products out there that also help to stimulate growth. A popular one is called minoxidil. So that stimulates the hair growth and improves hair density. Just having a gentle hair care routine using different like moisturizers, conditioners. So not using shampoo every day, not like rubbing rubbing it in, but really like massaging the scalp. So focusing not necessarily on the hair, but like the scalp and massaging, um, and just avoiding using any kind of harsh chemicals. Okay, so all of those things can help promote healthy hair and growth. If you're finding or noticing that your your scalp, for example, is shiny, if there's shiny spots, that would be an indication that there won't be growth or the growth will be thin. Okay. It's more on the rare side. It does happen. So overall, mostly, yes, hair grows back no matter how long you've been pulling. Okay. Okay. What is the white stuff at the end of my hair that I see when I pull? So I think what you're talking about is like at the end, sometimes there's like a little white by the bulb. So that's the keratin sheath. And basically what that is, it's protein. It's a protein structure and it attaches to the end of the hair follicle. And so that kind of helps anchor the hair while it's regrowing. So it's just kind of a sign that it's in the middle of a cycle, right? So hair has different growing cycles. So that's just part of one of the cycles that it's going through. So it's not indicating that anything is bad. It's normal. Okay. Why do I pull my hair? All right, that is the big question. Why do we do this? So basically, I say basically, but it's not basically because it's quite complex, right? Uh, but urges happen when you're typically overstimulated, right? So when you're anxious, when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, and it could also happen when you're understimulated. So when you're bored, right? Urges kind of act as this way to regain balance. So overstimulated, understimulated, and you're trying to regain that balance. Okay. You can also think about external triggers, right? And internal triggers. So things that are happening around you that are out of your control versus things that are happening within you, such as your thoughts and your feelings and reactions. So with BFRBs, I like to specifically think of the acronym SCAMP, SCAMP. And I think of that in terms of triggers and also strategies. So sensory, cognitive, affect, motor, and place. So sensory, what are your thoughts? I mean, sorry, sensory. What does it look like? How does it feel? Right? What is the sound it makes? All those sensory aspects. Cognitive, what are your thoughts? Right? What are your thoughts that are going on through your head? Affect, what are your feelings? Motor is kind of your body positioning, right? How your arms, how your fingers are moving, and what barriers are you going to use to block yourself? Place, where are you located? Bathroom, right? Bed, desk. These are some common places that you might just be sitting. Let's say you're sitting you have a spot on the couch. You sit in the same spot on the couch every time, and that's where you pull. If you just sit down in that spot, you might automatically get an urge because your body is used to having urges and used to pulling in that spot, right? So simply sitting on the other end of the couch sometimes can help decrease urges. Okay, so lots of reasons, lots of potential reasons, and lots of potential strategies. Okay, I'm gonna go to your questions now. Those are some of the commonly asked questions and some of the pre-submitted questions. So I'm gonna jump to your questions and let's see. Excellent. Okay. I have a teen who is resistant to getting any therapy. What advice do you have? Should I just go ahead and book an appointment with a therapist and make him go? He absolutely refuses help or even talking about it. So, what's frustrating is that um, if the person that has a BFRB does not want help, going to therapy is not going to help. So you see this a lot with kids and with teens. So it's really common. Usually, the parent wants the child or teen to go more than the child or teen. So if they're feeling pressured to go and they don't want to talk about it, honestly, it's it's not going to be helpful for them. So it's only going to be helpful for them if they're ready and if they want to go. So if it's not something that's bothering them uh, and it's not interfering with their life, honestly, I'd kind of let them be until they're ready. Okay. You tend to see a lot of people enter treatment for BFRBs when they're in their 20s. So not so much in their teens, but in their 20s, they kind of realize, oh, wait, this is an actual thing. This is bothering me. I want to learn about it and I want to manage it. So you see a lot of people kind of in their 20s starting treatment. Yes, kids and teens, there are plenty of kids and teens in treatment, but it's really going to be most helpful if they want to be there and if they're feeling ready. If you decide that they are not ready and it's just not worth it, as a parent, you can consider joining. For example, we have a parent program. So ideally, it's nice to do it alongside with your child, but it's just a really nice way for you to kind of increase your understanding and know what kind of support you can give for when they are ready. And who knows, if you're doing a program, that might interest them because it's not them doing the program, it's you doing the program. So they might be more inclined to kind of read over your shoulder or be a little bit more involved because it's you that's doing it, not them. And you can share what you're learning with them. And it's just like a nice way to kind of get the foot in the door. Okay. So something to consider. What's it called again? Oh, what's the amino acid called? So the amino acid supplement is called NAC or N-acetylcysteine. Okay. Yeah, I should add this question to the frequently asked questions. But so yeah, why is trick not considered OCD? Which it's true. It is not considered OCD. It's kind of like a cousin to OCD. So it's it's related. It's OCD and related disorders, but it's not actually OCD. It's quite different. And I believe we have a separate webinar on this topic. So check it out. See if you search our YouTube channel and see if you can find it. So what how trick differs from OCD. But what happens with OCD is a um you have a thought, right? And then you do the behavior to relieve the thought. Okay. So and typically when you have the thought, if you don't do the behavior, your anxiety is going to increase, or if you don't do the behaviors, you feel like something bad is going to happen. That is not the case with BFRBs. With BFRBs, you might have a thought, but the behavior doesn't necessarily alleviate that thought. The behavior is to regain balance, right? So with OCD, the behavior is done to kind of alleviate anxiety. With BFRBs, it could be done for a variety of reasons. And again, to self regulate and manage any emotion, not necessarily just anxiety. OCD is treated differently than BFRBs. So with OCD, you're really focusing on exposure response prevention, ERP. That's the main treatment for OCD. That is not the treatment for BFRBs. BFRBs, again, it's that combination of the comprehensive behavioral model, habit reversal training, acceptance commitment therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and dialectical behavioral therapy. Um, and also, OCD is treatable with medications. There are medications for OCD. There are not medications for BFRBs. So there are similarities, but they are different, and it is not the same as OCD. Okay, I hope that kind of clarifies it a little bit. I use a rewards program as motivation not to pull, but I feel like there are some better motivation techniques. What would you recommend? Yeah. So I love the rewards method. My question is, what are you rewarding? So when people are using the rewards method, they have the mistake of rewarding not pulling, right? That is not how the reward method works, and that is not going to work. You want to reward yourself for using strategies. So you want to encourage yourself to track and to use strategies and give yourself stars. And the more you use strategies, the higher your reward gets, right? So that's a really great way of motivating yourself, and it's really encouraging too to be able to see all of the strategies you actually are doing. So it's really helpful to acknowledge that, and that feels good. And you're practicing using your strategies. So it really helps, not only to motivate, but it helps to practice using strategies and for it to become more natural and automatic and easier. Um, so that I would agree that that's my favorite reward, the favorite way to find motivation. Other things to motivate you. Oh, my other kind of go-to that I think people often forget is just to engage in your interests. Be mindful of your values. So what are the things that you like to do for fun? So do as many fun things as you can, right? Go outside, take an exercise class, join a creative workshop, do something creative at home, see friends, like whatever it is. It could be endless, right? Whatever makes you happy. Whatever your hobbies are, whatever your interests are, engage in those and make sure you engage in those weekly. The more you're doing the things that you love, the happier you're going to feel, right? And then the more motivated you're going to feel. Um, so I would say the reward system and engaging in your interests and values are my top two. Um, I would start with that. Of course, there are always going to be kind of like little things, and your motivation is going to go up and down, for sure, depending on the day and what's going on in your mood. Um, but I would say those are like the top two. Yeah, let's start with that. Okay. Skandalite. None. I'm not sure I'm processing this in my head, so I'm just going to read it out loud. Just a comment that I think some people may respond in a non-ideal way and doesn't necessarily mean not to be in your life, but maybe just not the trick support. Is this in response to when talking to another person and telling another person? Just a kind of, oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. So, right, when you're talking to someone and you're telling them about your trick, um, they might not respond in like that support way that you're expecting. They might be like, "Oh, okay." They might not have questions. They might accept it, but not have follow-up questions. They might have no reactions. So, right, you might be expecting a certain way that they're going to respond, and it might be different from that way. And that doesn't mean that they're not supportive and that they don't care. It's just a different way than how you've expected. So, yes, I agree with you, and that's a really important factor to put into place and a consideration. And to remind yourself that just because they don't respond the way you want them to or that you hope or expect, it doesn't mean that they don't care. Um, and if they want to be in your life still. Yeah, so I'm glad you made that distinction. Is trichotillomania a type of neurodiversity? um, no. It is different. Um, and and I had something of an answer kind of written down in another place, so I'm not going to be able to verbalize it quite clear right now. Um, but it's kind of affects different. It's like different parts of the brain, basically. Um, so it is different. It's um, Trichotillomania is a disorder, but it's not related to neurodiversity. If you email that question to support@trickstop.com, I can give you a better answer because I did write down an answer to this question, but I don't have it in front of me because this has been asked before. So my written answer is a little bit more clear than what I can provide verbally. Um, but it's different. Short answer is it's different, but I can expand if you email support@trickstop.com. Please advise the over-the-counter again, including dosage and recommendations and safe for a 15-year-old. So again, right now the most studied, it's called NAC, N-acetylcysteine. Recommended starting dose is 1,200 milligrams or taking it twice a day. So 600 milligrams and 600 milligrams. It's fine for a 15-year-old. What's great about this amino acid supplement is it's got very little to no side effects when it's taken this way and at this dose. So it is pretty safe. But again, I wouldn't just go out and buy NAC. I would consult with your primary doctor or a psychiatrist or the pharmacist, um, you know, just to double check and just to see if anything else is going on, any other medical conditions or any other medications, because you don't want any potential interactions. But it's called NAC. There's lots of articles out there on NAC. So even on trickstop.com, there's some articles. So take a look at that. Oh, how can I avoid the bed? Yeah, this is referring to when we're talking about place, right? So you can't avoid the bed. If your place is pulling in bed at night, right? You need your bed to sleep in, but you can change your position in the bed. So you can't avoid the bed, but you can experiment and see what it's like when you're on your back versus on your stomach versus on your side. What happens when you sleep diagonally? What happens when you put your head where your feet usually are and your feet where your head is? So you flip flop yourself. So you can experiment within the bed. Um, if you really want, I mean, I guess you can avoid the bed and you can sleep on the floor or sleep on an air mattress on the floor. I don't necessarily recommend that. I recommend exploring strategies to use on your bed and exploring your night routine to help you kind of relax and settle into bed, rather than avoiding the bed and sleeping on the floor. So I wouldn't recommend that. It is an option, but think about what strategies you can use while you're in your bed. So I have a client who engages in hair pulling, but recently the mother reported that the client is also cutting their hair. Would this still be considered BFRB? Yes. Yes, this is still within that BFRB category. So both pulling hair and just cutting the hair. Um, so the answer is yes. It's still considered a BFRB. It's and you can still treat it with the as you're treating a BFRB, or this kind of the typical what you mostly see of hair pulling, hair cutting treated the same way. Okay. So the question is, how does NAC work? And what does it do to lessen the urges? So you'll have to look it up because it's a lot of scientific terms um, that again I can't quite explain. Um, but it kind of um, addresses that glutamate. It's a whole thing about glutamate. So um, so look it up, look at some of the articles. It will explain it a lot better than I can because I'm not a researcher, not a scientist. So it's a little bit hard to explain. I would have to, um, look up the answer and read it to you, and then try to explain it based on what I'm reading. But yeah, it basically kind of works with the glutamate. Look up some of those research articles. Okay, you can find research articles on trickstop.com. You can find them on bfrb.org. If you just look up NAC and hair pulling, like you'll find those articles, and it will better explain to you how it actually works. Um, but it's interesting, and it kind of feels like a pressure is taking off when you take it and when it's effective. So this kind of like tension is released. People can kind of feel like they can breathe a little bit better. Um, so it's an interesting feeling. But look up some of those articles so you can kind of get the more scientific answer, which I can't provide unless I'm looking at the articles and reading it to you. Okay. And if you have trouble finding any of those articles or still have questions, again, just email us at support@trickstop.com and I'd be happy to kind of further explain it um, through writing when I can look at the scientific explanation. It's quite interesting. So this person, I'm not going to read it word for word, but basically there was a trauma. The person experienced this trauma at a young age, and that's when they started hair pulling. Is it connected? So the answer is yes and no. So trauma can trigger hair pulling. But just because you have a hair pulling disorder does not mean you also have a trauma. So trauma does play a large factor, but just because you have a trauma doesn't mean you're going to have a hair pulling disorder. Just because you have a hair pulling disorder doesn't mean you have a trauma. Okay. It's just unfortunately one of those experiences, if you already have that genetic predisposition, can trigger it. Okay. So in this case, hair pulling started right after the trauma. So yes, I would say it's connected. Yeah, so I'm 44 years old, and sometimes it is very difficult to control the urges, although I am aware at the moment that I should not be pulling, but still go ahead with it. Yep. So a couple of things. Uh, I like to think about it as managing urges, not controlling urges. So that's the first thing. It's really hard to interrupt pulling once you've started. So even if you're aware, even if you really want to stop and put that hand down, the urge is going to be so strong that you're not going to be able to interrupt it. Once you start, it's really, really hard to stop in that moment, right? So you are not alone. That is normal. The harder you fight the urge, most likely that urge is going to fight back. And it's going to feel like a war, and you're going to pull more. So that's why I don't like using this word control, because it kind of encourages this idea of you're like fighting against it. I like the term management because it allows for more flexibility and more self-compassion, where you're working with the urge and you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to understand what is it saying to you, and what can you do about it. So management. Okay. That said, ideally, it is most helpful to figure out how you can manage urges before the urges come up. So if you are aware of your triggers and situations, to kind of have a plan in place, so you can try to practice those strategies before that urge even comes. So that would be my suggestion. The other thing is, I'm noticing that you wrote, although I am aware at the moment that I should not be pulling, but still go ahead with it. I'm just pointing this out because everyone does it, uses this word should. I encourage people to avoid using the word should, because again, that puts more pressure on yourself and tends to make you feel more guilty and makes you feel more frustrated and bad about yourself when you use this word should. I should do this. I should not do that. It's not about that. Um, it's more what you think. I would rephrase that. So what you think would be best for you in that moment. What you think would be helpful for you in that moment. What is something you're going to try in that moment? So be aware of that use of should. Yeah. So my son's pediatrician says trichotillomania is categorized in psychology as anxiety. If it is not OCD, then do you agree with the category as anxiety? No, I disagree. This again is a common misconception. Um, it is not an anxiety disorder. It again, it used to be categorized. I think that's maybe in the past old DSMs. It used to kind of be under anxiety disorders, but people can pull their hair and not feel anxious. Okay. If you have an anxiety disorder, or if you have anxiety, it can contribute to urges. It's definitely a really big trigger for urges, but it is not the only trigger for urges. Again, just because you have anxiety doesn't mean you're going to also pull your hair. just because you pull your hair does not mean you have anxiety or feel anxious. As I mentioned before, a really common trigger is being bored, right? And being tired. Bored and tired are really common triggers for pulling that are unrelated to anxiety. So, no, it is not an anxiety disorder. Okay. Hope that clarifies. Yeah. Sometimes when I pick, I get more anxious, and that causes it to get worse. So it becomes this never ending loop. What should I do then to stop it? There's that should again. What can I do? What can I do to try to manage it? Right. Again, very normal. Yes, once you start pulling, you're aware. If you're aware, right, you're gonna feel bad about it, and you're gonna feel worse. And then when you feel bad and when you feel worse, it's gonna trigger more pulling, and then it just becomes this cycle. So it's one that's really hard to interrupt. My suggestion would be have a lot of self compassion. So talk to yourself, self soothe yourself, see what else you can do to treat yourself kindly. Okay. Um, so as you're getting more anxious and you're pulling, kind of talk to yourself, what is my body trying to tell me right now? What does it need? In what other ways can I help it and fulfill that need right now? And being gentle with yourself. Oh yeah, that XYZ just happened. No wonder I feel this way right now. No wonder my urges are really high right now. That makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna stand up and do some stretching for a little bit and see how I feel. Well, I'm going to shake it out for a moment, and then reassess. I'm going to go and get a drink of water. I'm going to make some tea and then see how I feel. Right. So, again, just being gentle and being kind with yourself. As you notice that anxiety increasing and that loop starting, you can interrupt it by kindness, by being kind and gentle. Okay. And switching your position, right? Moving a little bit. Okay. Okay. I hope that helps for you. My doctor recommended memantine as a prescription treatment. Have you ever heard of this? If so, what are your thoughts? Should it be used in combination with NAC? Um, I would not combine it with NAC. Again, I would talk to your doctor, but I would take it separately and just see how you do with it on its own. When you take medication separately, that allows you to see how it works. Yeah, so memantine is a potentially new medication for BFRBs for hair pulling. It's an exciting new medication. There's a lot of potential. So yes, you can try it, especially if your doctor is recommending it and you're working with your doctor, because it's on the newer side. With working with that's why I tend not to recommend it as the go-to medication, because there needs to be more research. They are still researching it, but it it is an exciting option, a potential option. So far, a lot of really good things are happening with memantine. So yes, as long as you're with your doctor, go for it. Give it a try. You're welcome. I'm seeing some thank yous. Yes. So is BFRB related to glutathione and or glutamate production? Yes. Again, you'd have to look this up to get the more scientific answer and explanation. But that is why things like NAC is helpful, and why things like memantine is looking like it's going to be helpful, because there is a tie between this glutathione and glutamate. Um, so needs more research, of course, but there does seem to be some kind of connection. So maybe I Should. So maybe I should offer a reward system to get my teen son to agree to go to a therapist, or would that not work because he's motivated to get the reward itself and not any advice from that a therapist would give? Well, so maybe I could try to offer a reward system. You could try. But again, what the reward is to go to a therapist. So, okay, so they go to the therapist, they get the reward, but are they actually going to be working with the therapist? Are they going to be doing their homework? Are they going to be practicing strategies? Are they going to be um, talking and being and expressive during therapy? So, you're not going to be able to kind of control what's happening in the therapy sessions. So, you're rewarding them physically going to a therapist, but not necessarily doing the work of therapy. So I don't know if that would work or not. Um, Again, always worth a try and see how he does and see how he responds and see what you think. But I think the reality is if he's not ready to do the work and to address what's going on, therapy is not going to really make a big difference. But he could surprise himself, and once he goes, he might like really like it and like having someone to talk to and chat and connect with. So, so try it. See if he can go and just see if he's like willing just to go and try and see what he thinks. Yeah. So again, for some people, trauma can trigger it. Can trigger it. Again, if you're kind of genetically if you have a genetic predisposition and you experience a trauma can absolutely trigger it. Just because you had a trauma does not mean that you are going to pull your hair, but if you have that other factor, absolutely, it can make an impact. Um, So yes, if you experienced in an event and you started to pull right after, it makes sense that it's related. Oh yeah, do you know of any products that ease the itchy sensation of new growth? I have tried oil and conditioners, but this is short-lived. Yeah, there are so many products out there. So I don't have any specific recommendations for that. I'll have to look actually because I think I started a list. Now that I think about it, I might have wrote a list of some product recommendations for that itchy feeling. Um, but I haven't looked at that list in a long time, but I think I did start to make a list like years ago, just like a resource list of specific products. So I'll look for that list. So email support@trickstop.com and I'll look for that list so we and see if I can get that to you if I still have it somewhere. But yeah, that like itchy new growth feeling can be pretty uncomfortable. Different kinds of oils are good because and conditioners because it kind of softens it a bit. But yeah, I mean, you just have to kind of keep applying it because it's short-lived. You're right. Yeah, but email us and I'll take a look and see if I can find that list that I have. Other than that, just try different things and see what works and what doesn't work because different things are also going to work for different people. Yeah, so when you're tend to be pulling in bed. So besides switching up your positions, right, your stomach versus back or side or sleeping with your head where your foot is, other strategies, so like yes, wearing a sleep cap or bonnet can really help in bed. Absolutely. Wearing gloves to bed can also really help. So you have two barriers. Some people really like weighted blankets as well. So you feel that weight on you. And you can have, again, other things by your nightstand. Maybe things things to squish, things that are soft, sleeping with like a stuffed animal, something that's gentle, feels good. Even having like a comb or a brush by your bedstand so you can kind of massage. Well, it's massage wherever you're pulling from. Well, I guess in this case it's head, but yeah, you can kind of massage your head or anywhere where you're pulling from with a comb or a brush. That's a really nice strategy to kind of stimulate the area without touching it with your hands. And be mindful of your bedtime routine, right? So, what are you doing at night to kind of slow down, to relax, to quiet your thoughts? Okay. Whether that's reading or doing some journaling or doing like a mindless game before going to bed or taking a shower to slow things down, keeping lights dim, listening to soft music. So there's so many things you can do at night as you're getting ready for bed to try to relax yourself and get ready for sleep, to address those evening urges. That's a very common time for urges as well. I feel guilty afterwards, especially when I look at myself in the mirror. Yeah, and I'm aware that I can control it sometimes, but that itch triggers it. Yeah, if I don't have that itching in my eye, I probably can control it and never pull out. Can we treat it with medication? Yeah, so that eye itchiness is so uncomfortable right as it's growing in, and yes, it triggers more pulling. And what's hard is that you have to be mindful of what there are, again, products you can put on your lids that are safe to be in your eye, but you just have to make sure, you have to look it up. Um, and you might have to experiment with what products feel good for you. So there are products that help with that itchiness and tingliness that are safe to use specifically on your eyes or by your eyes. Um, so if you are buying a product, do make sure that it is safe for that area of your body. Okay. There is no medication for that, like a oral medicate, like for itchiness as it's growing back. That's just how it feels, unfortunately. And also keep in mind, again, it's not about control, it's about management. I mean, there are aspects of it that are within your control, and there are aspects of it that are not within your control. Because again, it's a disorder for a reason. What that means is that it's harder to manage, it's harder to work with. So be kind to yourself. It's hard. You are not alone. Of course, you're going to feel guilty afterwards, when you're looking in the mirror, because it's upsetting. It will grow back. It will take time, but it will grow back. Be gentle and think about how you can treat yourself kindly, especially when you're not feeling good after. What can you do? What can you do that's self-care? Okay, lots of self-care. Yep. Gloves can help. Gloves are a really good strategy for when you're in bed, for when you're reading, for when you're watching TV, even if you're like doing work at a desk. So in certain situations, gloves can be really great. And be mindful of what kind of gloves too, like thin cotton gloves are really good. I like billiard gloves where they're basically like three-fingered gloves. So those are really nice because it just kind of covers the pulling fingers, and they're quite airy so you don't get too hot. Do not wear plastic gloves. Do not wear winter gloves, especially if it's summer, spring or summer, right? So just experiment with the type of gloves that you're using. Can trick be hereditary? Because my mother has it too, and I don't know if unconsciously I imitated it. Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier on, there is a very big genetic predisposition. So, right now, research is showing that yes, it is inherited. Yes, it is hereditary. So it is not just because you maybe saw your mom pulling, um, and you unconsciously intimidated it. That could be a very small aspect of it, but the larger picture is that it's within your genes. Is this a lifelong disorder? Um, Unfortunately, yes. This is a chronic disorder. Um, so that means it's lifelong. There is no cure. That said, it does not mean that it's going to be active your entire life. It can be managed and it can kind of go dormant. So even though this is a lifelong disorder, it does not mean that it's going to impact you your entire life. And it does not mean you're going to be pulling your entire life. It just means that that disorder is going to kind of be within you. Um, and you're going to have good days and bad days, or good years, and bad months, and it could vary. Okay, but as you're aware of it, the more you're aware, the more strategies you kind of get under your tool belt, the easier it becomes to manage, and the better you feel about it, and the more likely those urges will decrease. Okay, so I hope that gives you some hope, and not feeling discouraged. Yes. So can trichotillomania be triggered without trauma? Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, trauma is not necessarily a trigger. A lot of people have trick without having a trauma. Okay. If you are genetically predisposed, have a genetic predisposition and experience a trauma, then yes, that is likely to trigger your trick. Um, but if you have a genetic predisposition and have no trauma, you could still get trick. It could still be triggered in many, many other ways, as we discussed. Hormones, age of onset, any other co-occurring disorders, right? So many other factors can impact um, triggering trick. Yeah, watching TV is a trigger for me. I have started putting tape on I love tape on my thumbs and find it really helped. Is this a strategy you would recommend? Oh yeah, I love tape. Um, yeah, TV is a really big trigger. Have something to do while you're watching TV, something else with your hands, something to play with, knitting, crocheting, coloring, something to pop, squish, change your seat on the chair, on the couch. And yes, tape. I like Scotch tape. And what I really like about tape is that it's very accessible, it's cheap, and it feels really good if you kind of tape these two fingers, right, your pointer and your thumb, and you can kind of let the tape kind of hang over the edge a little bit and like flick it. It's strangely satisfying. um, and you can just take the tape off and put more tape on if it falls. So yes, I love Scotch tape. Yeah, it's a great strategy. I can't think of a reward. A reward for using strategies, good idea. Yeah. So if you're using the reward system, reward yourself for using strategies. And that reward can be anything. It kind of depends on what motivates you, right? So it could be money. It could be um, a food, right? A dessert. It could be stay up a little bit extra later. It could be extra family time. It could be going to a special event, right? It could be, so a reward doesn't have to be something physical or monetary. It could really be, it could be anything that's important to you, and that you like. Um, so yeah, and you might want to have a variety of rewards too. So you're going to get sick of just having the same reward each time, and it's not going to be exciting, and it's not going to be motivating, and then it's not going to work. So have a lot of different rewards. Okay. This does not have a chat feature, so I'm not able to put like information in a chat. So I'll just repeat information. So someone is asking for the email again. So the email, if you have additional questions or have follow-up questions, it's support at trichstop.com. Trichstop. Okay, support at trichstop.com. Okay. Oh, and someone is saying microforum tape on fingers is quite good. Yeah, and you can experiment with different kinds of tape as well. I also like fabric tape because tape that's more fabricy because you can kind of like unravel it. So that kind of pulling the tape apart can feel really good. So experiment with what kinds of tapes work for you. Yeah. So trick has come on a lot at school. How can I ask my teacher for a break or help for a 10-year-old, almost fifth grader? Yes. So, yeah, if pulling is happening at school, um, I do recommend talking to the teacher. It's a great opportunity to educate the teacher, not in front of everyone, but like off to the side, have a conference, find time to inform the teacher, educate the teacher. What is trichotillomania? What are things to look out for? And what are some things that the teacher can do to help the child in the classroom when they notice that they're pulling? So that does not mean calling on the child in the classroom and saying, hey, I see you, stop doing that. Right? It does not mean that. That is not helpful for anybody. Um, it would be if the teacher notices the child is pulling, the teacher could go up, you know, subtly go up to the child and say, hey, do you mind getting this for me from the drawer? Right? Do you mind getting this for me at the bookcase? So giving the child a special errand to do to kind of distract them and give them something else to do. Um, and yes, breaks. So I wouldn't recommend like a break to go to the bathroom because then they just might go pull in the bathroom. So for if they need a break, think about what they can do during the break. So that's why I suggest like having some ideas of what they can do in the classroom to help the teacher, right? Oh, do you mind, um, do you mind while you're waiting for the others to complete the assignment, why don't you go over there and straighten out the bookshelf? Right? Or if there's a class pet, can you help feed the class pet? So give the teachers some ideas of things that they can do to help the child in the classroom. Okay. They could technically also schedule regular breaks for everyone. That would be really subtle, but I don't know what, the class routine is or the class schedule is. So if they can't do something for everyone, what can they do subtly to help the one child that's struggling with pulling? Okay. Oh, I'm getting some thank yous. We are nearing the end here. So other questions, comments, I'm here. You're welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm glad that this was really helpful. And you gained some more information and got some more ideas. We do these pretty regularly. Yeah. Oh, look at that. I just a question just popped up. Will there be another meeting date? Yes. So we do these about every other month. So we're talking about next one being sometime in August. So stay tuned. August and then October and then probably December. So we do it like every other month or so. So these are also all recorded. So if you ever want to go back and look at old question and answer sessions, they're all there, all available to you. But yeah, there's something about like joining a live one and getting your questions answered on the spot. So yeah, so come join us again. And in between those times, if you have other questions, again, feel free to reach out and um, email us. I love this new feature of like the hearts and the thumbs up coming up. That's so encouraging. I love that. Um, yeah, so thank you. Support at trickstop.com. If anything comes up, between now and our next session, we are here for you. Any questions, we'll do what we can. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And I will see everyone next time. Take care.